Shall we find out by speaking to Greg Swenson, Chair of Republicans Overseas. Hi, Greg. How are you doing? Well, where is Greg? Got to speak to myself then. All right, blimey. There I was. There he is. I was tempting fate by saying, you know, tech always has its issues. And I was like, hi, Greg, and where were you? There you are, though. Pleased to see.
There we go. Looking
very handsome as always. It's saying something's gone tonto in Americanism.
Yes, it has to be, because Tonto was a character in a Western, you know, like a cowboy Western thing, and I can't remember now. So, you know, shame on me.
Lone Ranger?
Yeah, it was the Lone Ranger, and his sidekick was Tonto. So I don't know what the connection is. That's homework tonight.
Yeah, do
Alex.
people actually say that in America, though? Something's gone absolutely tonto, or is that, I don't know.
No, I don't hear it that often. But I do. I've heard it at least once, because I recognize the phrase, but I just don't remember what it connotes.
Yeah, no, there's another one that people say, oh, it's going to go absolutely postal. I don't know what that means either.
That's kind of an unpleasant reference to maybe 20 or so years ago, when a couple of crazies would walk into a post office and start firing. So, yeah, it was, you know, one of those mass shootings. So not tasteful, but I get the joke. I mean,
not so great. Oh, well, there you go. We're not politically correct here, are we?
It's offensive, but it's refreshing, you know. And if someone is acting like a real idiot, then sure, you know, you can say they went postal.
And now, talking about getting upset, Donald Trump has threatened, apparently, to sue Trevor Noah over the Epstein joke at the Grammys. I mean, I don't know. I just sort of feel like, why bother?
Yeah, I think that, you know, the president is litigious, and sometimes, you know, his lawsuits have great merit, and I'm glad that he, you know, punches back when necessary. But I'm not sure that, you know, some sort of taunt at you know, an award show is worth it. You know, plus, you know, we're all for free speech. So if you want to say obnoxious things about the president, you know, you might not be popular in some circles, but you have every right to say it.
What's going on with this Epstein stuff and Trump? Because I've been trying to stay abreast of all of it over the course of the weekend and, you know, get on top of all the releases. And it was like, well, Donald Trump, ooh, Donald Trump. And yeah, I haven't really read anything about him. So, and I just know that if there was evidence saying that Donald Trump was on that island cavorting with scantily clad teenagers, it would be the front page story of every single publication. So what is it he's supposedly done?
Really nothing. There's nothing new. And as we all know, if there was anything in the Epstein files that would be damaging to the president, it would have come out in October of 2024. I mean, the Democrats controlled the information. They would have either leaked it or released it. They did everything else possible to destroy President Trump. Do you think they would have filed all those ridiculous lawsuits and indictments and tried to kill him, and then they held back on the Epstein files? It's completely absurd to think there's anything in there. You know, 3.5 million pages, and, you know, you have some there were a couple of notes which were just emails between the prosecutors going over evidence, and they said, yeah, that someone said Trump did this or Trump did that, but they're not credible and we don't believe it, and so we're not following up on this stuff. It's ridiculous. So that's it. But there's stuff like that about a lot of people too.
Yeah, no, this is the thing. I mean, like, they're clearly clutching at straws, except every time I'm looking right now at various news channels in my Cape Canaveral, and of course it's showing that scene of Trump bringing out the old Trump dance, standing next to Epstein at a party. Who cares? Anybody seemed to be invited to that island or get to know Jeffrey Epstein. It's sort of like mutually assured destruction at this point. And like you said, if they had a smoking gun, it would have been used by now. It would have been used. It's absolutely ridiculous to think that they'd, you know, compassionately sit there and go, well, let's let him become president first. It's a nonsense.
It really is. And that's why it's just, you know, they'll keep trying, and they keep speculating. And I even had some people on with me in the UK media in the last few months that, like, everything that President Trump did, they said it was so he could change the subject from Epstein, which is completely absurd. It shows you how desperate they are. It's kind of sad to watch.
No, it's true. It's true. Now, I want to talk to you about Trump's approach to Iran.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's filled the region with kinetic potential, warships, fighter planes. You know, we know that he's basically got Iran surrounded and is saying, sort yourself out or I'm coming after you. We all kind of expected something to happen by now. My understanding was there's potentially an intelligence report saying, well, you know, they actually might have the capacity to hit back and it'd be Israel in the crosshairs. But what I don't understand is this idea now that he wants to have some sort of deal with Iran. You can't do a deal with a terrorist nation. We learned that in the JCPOA. Donald Trump himself was so critical of the Iran nuclear deal. So why the sudden change of heart, especially in the wake of understanding quite how many people that evil regime has murdered in cold blood? We know that they're the greatest sponsor of global terrorism. We know that they're in cahoots with Russia and China. We know that they cannot be trusted at all because, oh no, we don't want to make nuclear weapons. What are you doing with that uranium then? Why are you enriching it almost to weapons grade? These people are really dangerous. They're murderous. They're brutal. And yet I would have imagined that if Trump had wanted to take them down east, surely America would have been able to. I don't understand this change of position. Yeah,
I think the only way I could probably explain it is that he just doesn't like war, right? He's very much a pro-peace, a peace president, right? And very much anti-war. So he doesn't want to get into something that he'll regret. Now, it didn't stop him from bombing the nuclear facilities, and he did that with, you know, with like almost perfect execution. It didn't stop him from killing Soleimani back in early 2020 because he misbehaved and he felt that was important to do. So he's not afraid to use military force, but he wants to do it very tactically. And this regime, there's a lot of people have a really bad taste in their mouth about regime change, right? And so it's one thing to destroy their nuclear capabilities to protect people, especially countries in the region, and it's another thing to take out, you know, a nut job like Soleimani, who had killed Americans and killed Brits for 20 years, either directly or through their proxy groups. And so, you know, there is merit to that. I think he's in a difficult spot because he kind of drew a red line like Obama did with Syria 15 years ago. And that's difficult. So maybe he's trying to give them an off-ramp. He tried to give the mullahs an off-ramp when he destroyed their nuclear facilities. He tried to give, even Maduro in Venezuela an off-ramp. He'd rather do this diplomatically and peacefully. And when forced, he will use force, and we will win. I don't think there's they don't have much capability to defend themselves against the American military force. It's they were virtually useless when we bombed their nuclear facility, and I think the Israelis did really took care of business before that execution. So, I don't know what's going to happen. I just think he's would rather do it with some sort of a deal. And you're right, Alex. They can't be trusted. Even if they do a deal, they'll violate the terms of it. So I'm not sure what the right outcome is, but I don't think there's a real taste, especially on the right, for boots on the ground or forever wars. And, there's still that sort of legacy from Iraq and Afghanistan.
Yeah, I mean, this is my concern, actually, that they have weighed up what would happen as a result of a military intervention and decided that the cost may be too high. And that quite concerns me because it means that Iran's got greater capabilities than perhaps first thought, that they wouldn't. Because before, where they've retaliated or, they've sort of done a bit of theatre, really. Oh, we're going to chuck over a few ballistics and rockets that they knew would be intercepted. Although actually saying that when I was in Israel, they were like, oh, it only takes one of them to hit and it's a mass casualty event.
There's merit. I mean, they fired 300 missiles at Israel 2 years ago and none have been landed. But you're right. All that you have to have is one. And I think the retaliation would surely be against Israel. It's a real tough one. Nobody wants to start some big conflict. The left and the media will go berserk if he does this. But there's the outcomes would be pretty good. Eliminating the mullahs from Iran would bring, not only peace to Iran, but also real positive movement in the region. It would eliminate Hamas and the Houthis for the most part, and Hezbollah, who depend on them. It would really settle things down. I'm surprised that the Emiratis and the Saudis have said they're against any intervention, but I'm not sure they really mean that.
No, they're not. They have to say that, don't they? They say something on the outside, but then at the same time, come, park your military jets here. We're not going to stop you using the air bases that we allow you to have in the region. No, I actually think for certain that most of that region wants to see Iran gone, which is why all of us are willing Trump on and saying, please do something. And I do actually think that the reason nothing's been done is because potentially there's a lot more capability than perhaps we first thought. There's certainly been a lot of noise on social media over the weekend of reports of China but apparently sending cargo planes that all went dark on radars, and were they going to Iran, and what were they delivering? That's been refuted, of course, not just by China but also by the US, who said no, that's not true at all. But I do think there's a sub-narrative to this that we're not being told.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think that the people that are maybe negotiating in Turkey are probably just going to give an ultimatum, and the mullahs really have to go. I mean, it's really, they've done so much, they've caused so much destruction over the last generations, since 1979, and that fleet, as we proved in Venezuela, Russian defense systems are absolutely useless, and so. That fleet that sailed to the region, I think they would have, the Iranians would have very little capability to defend themselves or the mullahs anyway. And so, I don't know if I mentioned, my nephew is on the Abraham Lincoln. He sailed in November. He's an F-18 fighter pilot.
No.
And he sailed his F-18 onto the Lincoln back in San Diego. They were sailing to the South China Sea for 9 months, and they were just diverted a few weeks ago. So they're in right near Oman right now.
Oh wow!
Great
I mean, that's super cool, by the way. I love a bit of a fighter aircraft. That's such a great thing. So proud of your nephew. How wonderful. Someone's message say that tonto means fool in Spanish, apparently. So I don't know whether that's where it comes from. I'm gonna have to Google this during the advert break, because I just pick things up and I repeat them. And sometimes I don't know the etymology, and I love to know it. Greg, thank you ever so much for joining us. Well, there is the brilliant Greg Swenson. You know him by now if you're a regular listener. Right.